I'm Andy Katz, and this is the Sony Alpha. I think my photographic style is images that have rich light to it, that have somewhat either provocative or pleasing. Images that you would like to look at for a period of time, or you wouldn't want to look at at all. I started taking pictures when I was around 11 years old. Actually it was a little bit before that. My parents gave me an old Argus camera that I used to just harass my schoolmates with, and I got truly addicted to photography and haven't stopped ever since. There's never been any time in my life where I didn't think I was going to be a photographer. Professionally, I started working probably officially in 1974. And you know, when you first start photography, anything that came to you, you would take. My photographic career really changed in 1978 when I was sponsored to travel around the world to do a project on children. And I spent a year traveling by myself on an incredibly small budget. And I came back with a lot of work that I was very, very proud of, and I still show some of the work that I did back then. But I really, at that point, decided that what I really want to do is to make my living traveling and getting images while traveling. It just doesn't get better than that. I've been somewhat known as a landscape photographer, and I love photographing people. And I thought if I was to pick a great subject, what is better than India? What spice is this one? Curry, okay. Over 1 billion people. I thought this would be a great project to really focus on photographing people, personalities, as well as having the opportunity to do landscapes as well, because it's such a diverse country. I travel by myself, generally. I don't bring an assistant with me.
Beautiful. What do you think? That's the new Sony camera. Good? All right. Thank you. No,
I'm pretty much a minimalist. When I travel, I carry 2 a900s. Fortunately, I've never had to use the second one. The second one was merely for backup. I carry the 16 to 35 f2.8, 24 to 70 f2.8, and the 70 to 400 4 to 5.6. And that's pretty much my equipment. I was photographing an area called Hampi, and we came across this cave with these massive boulders, which I thought were really, really interesting, with just little bits of light coming through there. Really difficult lighting situation.
All right, I've got these beautiful rocks. I got myself a tripod, put it on timer with a mirror lockup. Keep everything very, very sharp and steady. I've got a very wide angle lens on, 16 millimeter, and it looks beautiful. I'm just trying to get some detail in every part of these rocks.
For really long exposures, light kind of goes around objects in a different way than at 150th of a second. And it creates some very, very soft light, some diffuse light, some highlights that are totally blown out. Kind of a magical light that creates a very pretty environment for the subject that it's in.
There. Right, this looks better.
I always have a tripod with me, and I have to confess one thing. Since I've gotten the a900, I use a tripod less.
Unbelievable. I mean,
the steady shot in this camera is so phenomenally good that if I'm shooting with a wide angle at a 15th of a second, I am absolutely convinced that that's going to be sharp as a tack. If I was holding a wide angle lens with any other camera, I would be very, very nervous about shooting at a 15th of a second. And the 70 to 400 lens, that's an exciting lens. That it's very light and you can carry it. It's not the fastest lens in the world. It's at a f4.5 to 5.6, which is okay with me, but it's brutally, brutally sharp, and it's very versatile. So you can shoot portraits with this lens.
And then you can use it as a true long telephoto.
In India, there are a lot of crowds. There's a lot of opportunity where you can either shoot for the crowd, or if there's an individual person in the crowd that you want to focus on. And some of the images that I shot with wide-angle lenses of maybe 70, 80 women just waiting for this parade to come by, or 150 men just kind of sitting around waiting for tea to come. To me, it's really obvious who's interesting and who's not. Some faces I'll find more interesting than other faces. Not that it's right or wrong, it's just in my view that that's an interesting face. That face has incredible character. Oh my gosh, look at that bright turban, and then behind that you've got this blue building. That's one of the many reasons I love India. There's always unbelievable visuals going on. It's always incredibly exciting.
I love fish curry. Oh, do you make fish curry?
The smells, the sounds, the colors, everyone doing their own little thing, and I think it's the best work I've ever done. I'm very, very happy with it, and I'd love to go back again.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Another happy customer with the Sony a900.
I don't think you can go out and say, I'm going to make some very powerful photographs today. I mean, a lot of it is, you know, where you are, waking up early, shooting when the light is the best. I only shoot very, very early morning or very late afternoon. So that helps you a lot, just producing beautiful light. And then a lot of times when you're traveling, you know, you'd be fortunate if some great, interesting looking person or an interesting event, or, you know, sometimes you get these amazing clouds. I mean, you have no control over that, but the more you're out there shooting, the more opportunity you have to capture something like that. You gotta shoot in beautiful light. You gotta wake up early in the morning. The idea of waking up at 9 o'clock, going out, taking some pictures and coming back and expecting beautiful photographs, to be honest, it's probably not going to happen. You've got to give yourself all the opportunity you can, and the opportunity you want is gorgeous light. And gorgeous light happens when the sun is low.
Now, you're in a beautiful spot. You've found the ultimate spot. You're excited about every element about where you're at. Now, the most important thing is light. You could go to the most gorgeous spot, and if you shoot in bad light, you're going to have a bad picture. It's as simple as that. When the sun is very, very low to the ground, you get warm light, the color is gorgeous, the texture it produces is gorgeous, the angles, the shadows, everything about it is absolutely magnificent. If I was to shoot here at noon, come back 15 minutes before the sun set, shot then as well as 15 minutes after the sun set, and showed you those 3 photos, I guarantee you that the one that was shot at noon would be one that you'd go, is this the same place? It just would not look as good. Always think about light. Look at what light is doing. See what it does to the trees, what it does to the leaves, what it does to the rocks. And then your eye will get trained to see what light is doing at different times of the day. Because when it's pleasant to the eye, it's pleasant to the camera. Also, after the sun is very, very low, don't get your gear up and leave. Sometimes after the sun is set, it produces this incredible glow. So find a spot, 1. 2, wait for the light to be absolutely magnificent, 2. 3, even when you think it might be over, wait. And if it gets dark and nothing happens with the light, you've lost nothing.
The most important thing about a camera is it's got to be reliable. I mean, you can have the most fantastic camera in the world, And if it doesn't work one day, you're up the creek. You know, with this a900, I've taken this camera to South Africa, I've taken it to India, I've gotten it wet, I've gotten it through massive sand. I really beat the hell out of this camera, and it's been absolutely flawless. Nothing has ever gone wrong with this camera. One of the great things about this Sony camera is it's got super steady shot in the sensor itself. And other manufacturers have stabilizers in the lenses, but none that I know of have any sort of stabilizers in any sort of wide-angle lens. Now, it's true that it's not as important to have a stabilizer in a wide-angle lens as a telephoto lens. However, it is truly important to have that. The other thing that's great about it is it's got a meter in the camera. It's got 4 bars, and with the 4th bar, it means you're shaking a little bit too much. When it gets down to 1 bar, that means you're holding it very steady. So you just hold the camera, steady the camera, wait till it gets down to that 1 bar, and shoot it, and it just works so brilliantly well. Here we are at Ferrari Carano Winery, and we're at the beautiful barrel room. And this is an interesting lighting situation. When you have a situation like this where you have some bright lights and a lot of very, very dark areas, there's one way to produce a beautiful, dramatic result, and it's a long exposure, because it compensates for the darkness and everything will look beautiful. And I will show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very wide angle shot. I have a 24mm lens on now. Basically, I'm going to guess on the exposure. So I've got about a 2-second exposure. I'm kind of guessing on this, 2 seconds at f8. I don't want to be near the camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this, and then I'm going to back up. We've got the 2-second exposure going on. And then I'm looking at this image here, and it looks pretty good, actually. But I'm a little slightly concerned with some of the shadow detail. So I'm going to add some more exposure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a series of exposures. I'm going to do 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and 20 seconds. So I'm going to do 3 different exposures. So now I've got 4 different exposures. I've got from the exposure to that's certainly overexposed with tremendous shadow detail. And then I've got the areas that are tremendously underexposed that has detail, kind of almost detail in the light. So there's several things we can do. One is, what we can do is process this in HDR. We take 3 images, 1 underexposed, 1 medium exposure, and 1 overexposed, which will take the highlight detail of 1, the shadow detail, and the midtones, combine them together, and you get a very interesting image. The other thing that I'll have is an image that will still produce a beautiful print. The deepest shadows won't have detail, but it's still going to look very, very pretty. Well, there's always dream images. I'm really fortunate that I've been able to pick a lot of the projects that I'm doing. But there's, you know, I'd love to go to Antarctica, I'd love to go to Iceland, I'd love to go to Greenland. There's a lot of places. It's endless. I mean, as many photographs as you've taken, you've barely scratched the surface.